Welcome to the debate. It is Friday, February 13, 2026, and in exactly 4 days, the music world is finally supposed to get Dalisay, the album that's set to define this whole new era for the artist we now call Liannarie. But, let's be real about what's actually happening on the internet this morning. Nobody is waiting patiently for Tuesday.
No, not at all. The timelines are a mess.
They're flooded with these so-called leaked files, these massive, bloated zip folders, all labeled Dalisay that have, everything from finished tracks to rough demos from like 3 years ago. We are watching a real-time war between the artist's curated official statement, the 12 tracks she wants us to hear, and this chaotic, messy history the internet just refuses to let her delete.
It's the classic digital age problem, isn't it? It's a struggle over who actually owns the narrative. Is it the woman who lived it and created the art? Or is it the audience that consumed it and now feels, entitled to every single scrap of audio she ever recorded?
Entitlement is exactly the right word. Because when I look at this situation, I see a really clear moral line. Dalisay, which, translates to clean spirit or pure, is a deliberate act of survival. It's a boundary. The transition from her old persona, Tala Diwata, to Liannarie isn't just a rebrand, it's a reclamation. She has presented us with a very specific 12-track arc. That is the album. That's the art. Anything else, dragging those old Tala demos back into the light, it's just noise. It's frankly disrespectful to the autonomy she's fought so hard to get.
See, you call it noise, but I call it context. I just don't think you can scrub the metadata of your life and call it a clean spirit. The reality is that this transition isn't nearly as clean as the press release wants us to believe. The fans circulating these leaks, they aren't doing it just to be disrespectful. They're doing it because they smell a disconnect. They see the messy reality of her history, the whole 11/6 music collective, the influence of D.L.B, all the remixes, and they realize that this polished official version feels, incomplete. The bloated file is the truth. The 12-track list is just PR.
Well, that's a pretty cynical way to look at growth. You have to look at the timeline here because the order of operations really matters. She didn't just wake up one day and delete her history. She gave us closure. Back in May of last year, we got Sincerely Lianna, which was the diary entry, the goodbye. Then in December, she literally emptied the vault with Thank You, Tala.
Right, and the fans ate it up.
Exactly. That project was explicitly framed as cleaning the closet. It was 23 tracks of, here, take this, I'm done with it. So for people to now complain that Dalisay doesn't have those old sounds it's completely missing the point. She burned the boats. Dalisay is the house she built on the other side of the water. Just look at the opening track Runway. The very first thing she tells us is, peace cost what my plane paid. That line is the entire thesis. This era is about earned peace. It's not about wallowing in the ongoing trauma that, leak culture seems completely addicted to.
Earned peace is a nice phrase for a press kit, but does the music actually support it? Or is it just a costume? Because when I look at the whole truth-fluent legal strategy led by her lawyer Julia Ju, who seems to be more of a curator than a lawyer these days, it feels like they are trying to legislate the audience's feelings. You can't legally enforce a vibe shift.
They aren't legislating feelings, they are protecting the narrative architecture.
But the architecture is built on a swamp. The fans are gravitating toward leaked tracks like Red Flag or If He Wanted To, because that's where the pulse is. They aren't looking for this curated soft life aesthetic where everything's beige and peaceful. They fell in love with Tala Diwata because she was raw, she was messy, and she was vulnerable. You quote Runaway, but let's look at the credits. This autonomous new Liannarie is still in the studio with the exact same 11/6 collective, Hustle Harmonics. DJ Riviere and D.L.B is still heavily featured in the writing credits.
So, they're her collaborators. You don't just fire your band because you changed your name.
They are not just a band. They're the ecosystem that broke her in the first place. You cannot declare a clean spirit when the music is still built on the rhythm and debt of that specific circle. It's a loop, not a line. There's a voicemail from Studio X circulating in the archives, I know you've heard it, where the legacy of that relationship is so heavy it hurts to listen to. The audience knows that. They feel that weight. So when they get this polished 12-track list, it feels sanitized. They want the blood and bone, which is in the leaks.
You're romanticizing the crash, though. You're essentially saying that because the audience saw her bleed, they're now entitled to watch for scar over in real time forever? But let's dig into the track list itself, because this is where the leak versus official debate gets really concrete. Dalisay is structured. It goes from Runway at track 1 to Easy Tonight at track 12.
A very tidy narrative arc. A little too tidy, maybe.
It's intentional. It moves from the Flex Runway to the Survival, the title track Dalisay, and finally to the piece with Easy Tonight. If you shove a leaked remix of Unseen Unstoppable or a track like Red Flag right into the middle of that, you are muddying the water she spent 9 months purifying. There's a reason those tracks were left off. Thank You Tala was the funeral. This album is the rebirth. Why are you trying to bring the corpse into the nursery?
Because the house is haunted. You can't just ignore a song like Red Flag. Have you actually read the lyrics on that leak? Danger looks too good in your face, and I know you're bad, but I'm built like that. That is a human reality. That is the relapse. That is the part of healing that isn't linear. The polished runway persona is desperately trying to hide the fact that she still feels that pull.
Or maybe she has actually moved past it. Why is that so hard to believe?
Because nobody heals that fast. The audience's desire for these leaks isn't just entitlement, it's a recognition of truth. They know healing is a messy spiral, not a straight line from track 1 to track 12. They want the toxic love cycles and the feminine grief that define the Tala Diwata sound, because that resonates with their own messy lives. They don't just want the soft life flex.
But that's exactly the problem. The audience wants her to stay in the toxic love cycle because it makes for better content.
No, they want her to be honest about it. Let's talk about the label 11/6 Music. That entire label was built on community-driven chaos. Remember the Sugar Palm incident in May 2025?
The live stream meeting? Yeah.
Right. That raw, unpolished, uncomfortable sit-down where everyone was airing their grievances in real time. That is the DNA of this artist. That is where she comes from. That wasn't about polished press releases or Julia Ju's legal strategies. That was about raw, unfiltered connection. So when you hand me a perfectly polished 12-track list, it feels artificial to the label's history. It feels like a lawyer overworking the artistic soul.
I think you're confusing artificial with professional. And honestly, that whole line of reasoning denies the artist the right to evolve. You are essentially saying that because she started in chaos, she has to remain in chaos to be authentic. But look at the bio they released for this era. It explicitly states that Tala Diwata was a mirror reflecting others, specifically D.L.B. and his trauma. Liannarie is the light source. She is no longer the reflection.
But the reflection is what made her matter to people. She was the conduit for their pain. And it crushed her. It made her a vehicle for everyone else's issues. Now she is a vehicle for her own power. Look at the track If You're Dreaming on the official list. The perspective has totally shifted. She is no longer asking, are we going to heal? Which was that heartbreaking, desperate question in that Studio X voicemail. Now she is setting boundaries. The lyrics imply, you ain't gotta prove nothing to me. That is a massive shift from codependency to autonomy. And frankly, the cultural reclamation of her birth name, Liannarie, honoring her Batanga City roots, that matters. She's taking off the costume of the Diwata, the goddess. She's just being a woman.
Okay, but consider this. Maybe the costume was the only thing holding the structure together. You keep talking about this clear separation, but Thank You Tala literally acknowledges that the new identity exists because of the old one. You can change the name on the streaming services, but look at the personnel again. On Runway 11, who is she with? Leona Jai, Melody Sin, Loki Him. It's the same cast of characters.
They are her community. That's support, not dependency.
They are the ghosts of Studio X. I keep coming back to that voicemail from the Lost Youth Archives because it haunts this entire project. You hear her voice cracking saying, I'm gonna effing miss you. That is the emotional core. You can change the name to Liannarie. You can wear the jet-set, skin-wet aesthetic of Runway. But that history, that rhythm and debt, is the texture of her voice. When I hear tracks like Soft Launch and Sugar Rush Secret on the Dalisay list, they sound like coping mechanisms to me. Soft life, hard earned. That implies the hardness is still right there, just beneath the surface. It's not total healing. It's a defensive posture.
I just think you're mistaking boundaries for defense mechanisms. The soft life isn't a coping mechanism, it's the reward. And this brings us right to the shadow of the ecosystem. You claim she's trapped in the 11.6 loop. I argue she has outgrown the D.L.B orbit.
How can she outgrow the orbit when she is the primary artist of the label he built? That's physically impossible.
By redefining her role within it, she's not the subordinate anymore. Look at the lyrics to Runway again. I don't chase, I manifest. Bad girls rest when they impressed. She is no longer the strong friend carrying the label's emotional weight, which was her role in the Sincerely Liana era. She's not the one asking to be seen anymore. She is the one being watched. The leak culture you're defending that's just the internet trying to force her back into the role of the tragic muse, the Tala who bleeds for the track. But the official album asserts her status as a boss. Paid in scars, no explanation. She doesn't owe us the bleeding anymore.
Paid in scars is exactly my point, though. The currency is still pain. The 11.6 ecosystem is the art, and D.L.B is the architect of that pain. He wrote Hustler's Prayer. He wrote Unseen, Unstoppable. Even if she remixes them, she's remixing his blueprint.
She is reclaiming the blueprint. There's a massive difference.
Is there? Or is she just redecorating the cage? Think back to the Sugar Palm meeting again. She was an observer then, sitting with River, quiet. Even if she is a leader now, she is leading within the same neon vision world. Listen to Runway 11, Jet Set, Money on the Seat. It sounds brittle to me. It sounds like she's trying to convince herself. Is she truly free, or is she just, as track 9 says, paid in tears? The cost of this so-called peace seems to be the suppression of the raw, messy truth that's found in the leaks. The official album feels like a contract. The leaks feel like a confession.
But a confession is not always art. Sometimes it's just trauma dumping. Art requires curation, and that is what Dalisay is. It is the art of survival, not the raw footage of the crash. You're asking for the crash footage because it's exciting.
I'm asking for the crash footage because it's true. And that's where we fundamentally disagree. You want the polished after photo. I'm saying the before picture is still visible right underneath the Photoshop.
It's not Photoshop. It's growth. And frankly, this obsession with the before picture says more about the audience than the artist. Why are we so uncomfortable with a woman in music deciding she's okay? Why do we need the Studio X voicemail to validate her art?
I just think it's a paradox. You have Runaway talking about custom nails, waist snatched tight, new nose, new lips. Same fight. Same fight. It's right there in the text. She changed the exterior, the name, the look, the soft life. But the fight is the same. The fight is the rhythm and debt.
Same fight implies resilience, not stagnation. It means the tenacity is still there, but the method has changed. She says, bad girls rest when they impressed. She is resting now. That's the difference. Tala never rested. Tala was burning the boats. Liannarie is building the house.
Resting or hiding? Sleep don't come, so I count what's broke. That's from the source material. That is the reality of the 11.6 mind state. I don't think you can just manifest your way out of that with a name change and a plane ticket. The leaks tracks like, if he wanted to show the relapse, if he wanted to heal, he would. She's still bargaining with those ghosts. That's why they resonate. That's why fans want them on the album. Because healing isn't a straight line. Dalisay tries to straighten the line, and I think that's why it feels artificial to the diehards.
It feels artificial to them because they're addicted to the tragedy. Liannarie is offering a way out. She is offering easy tonight. And yes, maybe it is a curated narrative, but isn't that the artist's prerogative to define the boundaries of their own story? The bloated leak folder is an invasion of her piece.
Or it's the return of the repress. You can lock the door, but if the house is built on a fault line, the walls are going to crack. And 11.6 is the fault line.
And Dalisay is the earthquake-proof structure she built on top of it.
We'll see if it holds up when the needle drops on Tuesday.
We certainly will. And I think this brings us to the core of what's really at stake next week. You view the leaks and the chaos as the essential blood and bone of the music.
I do. Look, I respect the craft of Dalisay. It sounds expensive, it sounds polished. But I maintain that the leaks, the red flags, the remixes, the Tala history are what give this music its texture.
The listener's impulse to hoard those tracks isn't just disrespect, it's a valid recognition that the mess is just as valuable as the piece. Liannarie is powerful, absolutely, but she cannot fully erase the ghost of Studio X. That voicemail will play in the background of every soft life anthem she releases, whether she puts it on the track list or not.
I get that, but I have to stand with the artist's autonomy here. An artist has the right, and perhaps the duty, to define the boundaries of their own narrative. Dalisay is that boundary. It is a 12-track statement of survival. While the Tala Diwata, the trauma, all of it, provided the platform, Liannarie is the destination. Those 12 tracks are the truth she paid for. To insist on the leaks is to insist she stays broken for our entertainment. I really believe the leaks are just echoes of footsteps she has already outrun.
Echoes can be loud, especially in an empty house.
Perhaps, but at least it's her house now.
That's a fair point. And that is what makes Next Tuesday so interesting. We aren't just listening to an album. We're witnessing a negotiation between the artist, her history, and us. Who wins, the curator or the crowd?
We'll find out on the 17th. Thank you for joining the debate. We encourage you to listen to the material, both the official Dalisay album when it drops and the archives if you can find them. Is the truth in the curated list or the messy files?
Or is it somewhere in between?
Until next time.